Alrighty, it is 9:02 a.m. on another sunny Thursday morning. I got 28 minutes before my first work meeting, so we got to do this quick. Basically, need to talk about and go over the guide for life, the 7 categories of things to work on throughout life that I kind of have, I wouldn't say developed, more of just kind of gleaned and copycatted from other really smart people. Look at that chord shit. Look at all that. My God. And you really need to get a new one. Anyway, so there are 7 categories I've kind of developed in what I call the practice. And it's basically all the shit you can use to have what I would like to say, decent life. And I've fallen off the wagon with this. This is something that I I've been wanting to practice more of. Like, it is something I've always practiced since I've developed it, and I've fallen off for whatever reason. I just got away from it. I thought that other mental health or spiritual techniques may be more direct. And when I say that, the spiritual techniques that I'm talking about, they're in here. I just think that what's in here is more, it has everything. It's a more holistic picture rather than focusing on one thing. It's like I was trying to pick things to work on for the heart rather than also for the heart, the digestion system, the brain, the lungs, a more holistic part of the experience. None of this shit is mine, by the way. Like, these categories I've kind of created are just all the things I've learned throughout the years of what helps me, makes me feel good. And sometimes I try to get cute and focus on one area. And I'm like, okay, maybe it just need me to focus on this. And I do that, then other areas of my life suffer because I'm not training or practicing the parts of the brain that help the other parts. So anyway, with that, we're going to go over these 7 categories. And if you are looking for a kind of maybe how-to guide or something to follow to work on and to better yourself in life, this is pretty good. It's worked for me. Anytime I go away from it, I notice a piece that's like, I could be using this part of the practice. So with that, let's go into the categories. So there's some other shit here. Don't worry about this. So basically, the 7 categories are mindfulness, hard stuff, contentment, connection, perception, foundations, and spiritual. So these are the 7, and I made it into 7 because it's like the thought was one category for each day of the week. Now, by no means does that mean you should only practice or look at, one category per day, but it's like you put more emphasis on that category that day. It's like the theme of the day. And hopefully over time, the more you practice and do one of these things each day, they start to bleed over into the other days. And so, like, you build habits of mindfulness. So when it's contentment day, you're still doing the skills or, you know, things in your repertoire from the previous days. So, like, with that, let's start with the category of mindfulness. So, mindfulness. This is probably, I would say, the most important category. If you've heard of mindfulness, it's basically the idea, the skill of where to place your attention. And I've said this often, but at any given moment, you're looking at me, you're listening to me right now. Your attention is on me, my voice, and looking and seeing, vision. And at any moment, your attention is on something. Your entire life is a series of moments of placing your attention on something. And the cool thing about mindfulness is that it teaches you that you can kind of decide where you want to place your attention. For example, you're driving home from work. A lot of times, we're not just driving home from work, we're thinking about 1,000 other things. Our attention is not necessarily fully on the road or listening to that good song. Half of it is absorbed into the thoughts that we're having. So now so this is the first part of mindfulness, is learning about your attention. The next part is the mindfulness skills. These are the skills that help you cultivate and get better at mindfulness. So, for example, And I know this is a lot. This is a lot of stuff. By all means, I don't expect you to understand everything. This is taking years to develop, and if I don't practice it, if I don't keep looking at it, I lose it. I forget it. So this is why I'm coming back to it. And selfishly, that's why I'm doing this episode, is because I need to do this. So the mindfulness skills are the 3 skills that can help you kind of direct your attention and get it to where you want. For example, concentration, the first skill, this is just the ability to keep your attention on one thing. And if you've ever practiced a meditation where you count your breaths, even for just a minute, you'll notice very quickly that your mind goes to other places. Your attention is distracted, it gets lost, and is redirected like a spotlight to something else entirely. So concentration is the ability to hold your attention, to hold that spotlight in the same place for an extended period of time. Awareness is being aware, to be cognizant, to know what your attention is on. Half the time when we're driving in that car, we don't realize or really fully know that we are lost in our mind. You think you do, but then time goes by and you're like, oh shit, and you snap out of it. And that is much more evident when you do meditation exercises. You realize how much your attention is getting diverted. So being aware of what your attention is on. The third thing, and this is a super skill, a super hard one at that, and that is equanimity. The ability to be aware. That was awareness. Equanimity is to be okay with whatever your attention is on. If you're feeling anxious, if something, you have negative thoughts, or just something, stressful in life is happening, even if you are aware of that's going on, it can still feel like a lot. And even when it feels like a lot, it's like we almost tense up, or we want it to go away, or we try to divert our attention, or we grab a drink, we react to what our attention's on. And so equanimity is the non-resistance, the allowing, the acceptance of whatever happens to be in our experience to be as it is. It already is here, so let's give it space to be. And this is an incredible skill, something that I was never taught, is learning and practicing to be accepting of the moment. So those are your 3 skills of attention. Now, basically, we're going to go a little bit faster here because, we got to keep this moving. Okay, so then this is integrating to the mind and body. So this kind of, or understanding the mind and body. This is basically understanding the mechanics or the different things of the mind or in the body. So like your thoughts. This is just learning about thoughts, how they come up, learning about emotions and like the flavor, the tone, the sense, the feeling of emotions, and kind of knowing how these interact with each other. So it's like you have the skills, you have the awareness skills, and then God damn, I keep doing that. You learn to notice what the attention is on. So like you learn and deconstruct your thoughts, the mental events, the emotions, the states that you are in, the sensations, your body sensations. All of these things are the different input of the mind and body that can help us understand or utilize our skills on. And then we'll skip here to discipline practice. This is the actual training ground. This is like, if these are your skills that you build, then the discipline practice is the gym for it. This is how you strengthen them. And you can do meditation, breath work, any kind of thing, mindful walking. These are the different ways to strengthen these different skills. And then the goal of that is to eventually, build some skills through the practice, and then you're able to take it out into the world naturally. Because that's the whole goal of this shit, is not just to, sound like you have an idea of your brain or whatever, but like to understand, not to understand. I'm losing my own train of thought. I'm getting lost. Let me come back. To get better at these different things, to practice it, that's how you get better. That's a discipline practice. And then to, of course, once you do get better, that it just naturally unfolds into your life. In basketball, the best players, they do the reps and practice repeatedly so that in a game, it just becomes natural. And that's the idea. The more you practice this stuff on your own, the more it just shows up in your everyday life, and it makes life so much easier. And that's coming from a person who has struggled with major anxiety and mental health issues for the majority of my life, which is what led me to this. And so that's what we're going to go into next, is the hard stuff. The anxiety, the suffering, the worry, the pain of life. All the shit that's tough in life is in this hard stuff category. And it's a great, important category because it's universal. We're all going to have problems. We all get old, sick. Everyone around us, gets old and sick too, and then we die. That's it. I mean, that is life. And while you may think that's grim or bleak, that is the reality. And to face that head on can help us form a more healthy relationship to it and not be as resistant or as reactive. So let's go into the hard stuff. Suffering. Basically, this is the idea that life has suffering. Whether you are, a homeless person on the street, or you are the president of a country, everyone has their own version of suffering and problems. Of course, they'll look different, but everyone has suffering in their lives. Nobody is immune. And I have a little equation or a little formula that the suffering that everyone experiences, now, of course, varies. Pain is what happens to us, like, the death of a loved one, losing your job, getting sick. These are unavoidable things. Pain is something that's going to happen to you. The resistance or the reaction to that pain is a factor or the thing of the variable of this equation that we have control over. And this is the things, the mental damage we inflict on ourselves from this pain. So if you know somebody who is constantly complaining or reacting and they make things so much bigger than they actually need to be, that's an extreme example of increasing their resistance to whatever is happening in their life. So they experience a much greater total amount of suffering than someone who is a little bit more accepting or resilient to whatever is happening in their life. So that's kind of like the overview of suffering right here is this part. This is kind of the main principle, and then the other aspects below are the ways we can look into it a little bit deeper and how to kind of reduce the resistance we feel. So like daily mind challenges, for instance. This is learning how to manage and deal with the worry and anxiety that comes up in our lives and how to actually handle that. The other part is alternate stories, problems in life situations. This is the idea or the concept of changing the narrative of whatever situation it is. Our mind often forms these kind of stories about what's going on in our lives and can often make it bigger than it needs to be. And then that is what creates a lot of the unnecessary worry and anxiety. And then that, of course, creates and increases the amount of resistance that we are feeling to whatever is going on. So it all works together. Another part of this is change and impermanence. How everything in life, and this is like a good and a bad, so to speak, is that everything in life, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing, is going to come and go. That means all your problems, each one comes and goes. And that also means all the good things in life come and go. Everything is passing through this physical world. Everything is transient. And in here we talk about aging, we talk about death, everything that has to do with impermanence. Now, this last part, training, is kind of a newer thing that's been talked about recently. I don't know if you've heard of David Goggins, or you don't have to hear about him, but like a cold bath, how people are doing cold baths and exercise. It's basically the idea of voluntary discomfort. and we can kind of strengthen our ability to be resilient and to handle suffering a bit better if we do some intentionally hard things ourselves. I mean, it's no secret that people that have hard lives are much more adaptable and tougher than those who've been handed everything and have never had to experience hardship or suffer. So this is the idea that we can kind of add that variable intentional suffering and learn how to deal with that natural resistance and the natural inclination for the brain to like resist and say no, don't do that, and being able to work through that. And so then when real shit does happen in your life, it kind of takes over. Your resilience has been built. All right, so I think that makes sense. Let's keep moving on. The next category is contentment. Contentment is a beautiful one. This is basically the how to be happy. I don't like using the word happy because happiness is just a singular emotion that if you were able to try to feel it all the time, you would be numb to it, in the same way that drug dealers, but like drug addicts get numb to the drug of choice. You do it enough, it doesn't feel as good anymore. Side note. So basically, I think a better word is contentment. How to be content with where you are in life, regardless of the circumstance. So, yeah, it's not about happiness. This one, I had a much... Okay, so basically, this is the formula I have for contentment. Having plus meaning plus connection. Having is made up of three main parts. God, it's not letting me highlight. This is very frustrating. Go like that. There we go. So the first part of this three-part equation, the first variable is having, and then within having, I have three things. Wanting, I want this. Resistance is the opposite of that. I don't want this. And then gratitude, I am thankful to have this. So these three things make up having. Now it sounds kind of like, okay, well, who gives a shit? But wanting, we want stuff all the time. We want to achieve goals. We want a better house. We want pizza. We want the work week to be over. We want something to be over. So then it's like we are resisting. I don't want this. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to have to sit in traffic. I don't want to deal with that. I hate being sick. I don't want to go to my in-laws. Whatever the case is, tons of resistance that we feel all the time without even thinking about it. And this affects our experience of being content with wherever we are, with whatever situation in life, whatever moment we are in. And then the wanting, another thing, is how this world is very dopamine driven and always telling you with ads and social media of telling you what you lack and you need to have this, and preying on what's called our dopaminergic circuits, which is a biologically hardwired part of the brain that helped us survive. Like when you were hungry, you were driven to go get food. It was a motivator to get off your ass and to go do things. But now today, people prey on that same circuitry to always making us feel like we are lacking. And that wanting can show up in two ways. I want this or I don't want this. And the majority of our life's suffering is from these two things. I mean, Buddhism, the core of Buddhism says that the root of suffering is desire. I mean, there's an entire spirituality kind of built upon this principle alone. Gratitude, we all know that. Being thankful for what we do have in this moment. And we don't pay enough attention to this, and it's a massive contributor to our well-being. Let's move on. This is just trying to be a quick overview, but there's a lot of shit. The next is meaning, basically having purpose. You have to have a reason to put your feet on the floor every morning. Now I forget, it's been a while since I've looked at it. Yeah, kind of 2 levels of purpose, maybe 2. There might be more. And this is not by any means everything I have. I just moved over to this software Notion last year, and I haven't ported nearly everything. Not that it matters. I don't need to show you, but most of my stuff is in OneNote. This is just kind of the stuff I have recently and in the main stuff. Anyway, purpose. You have to have something to do in life. You have to have some people that win the lottery and then don't know what to do with their time. They're lost. Human beings must have meaning. You have to have something to do, whether that be, focus on being a parent or a volunteer, a worker, a farmer, whatever it is. You have to have something in your life. Even if you're retired, you need to have hobbies, interests that keep you busy. We are not meant to do nothing. Now, intention, that's at the big scale. That's like having fulfillment in your life on a more high level. But then the lower level, micro layer, is intention. How am I going to show up for this thing? So, for instance, if I am going to do my work, my work as a software developer, I'm going to have the intention today to stay really focused and not let the little problems that come up or the little things that I don't know how to figure out bother me. That's what I'm going to try to do. That's my intention. So you kind of set a purpose in a day-to-day moment. So it's like if you have your overall purpose, let's say, and you don't have to have one thing by any means. It's not a one-to-one thing. You can have 10 different things you have a purpose in. But let's say for one of them is parenting. Maybe you want to show up and be a little more patient today. Your purpose on the macro level is being the parent. That's kind of one of the long-term fulfillment things or things you have to do. And then the intention is the moment, day-to-day moment of how I want to show up here and now. So meaning is another aspect. The next aspect of contentment is connection. I'm not going to go too much into this because this is its own category entirely. Basically, connection, how we relate, communicate with others. We're social creatures. We need to feel belonging, need to feel a social sense of safety, and felt known and heard from people around us. We're hardwired this way. They've shown that like being lonely or not having any people in your lives is more dangerous than smoking cigarettes, something to that effect. So it's a really big deal that not only it's for our health, not only to feel good, but for our health. The last part here, I have the feel good fundamentals. That was not in the equation above, was it? It needs to be. How did that get missed out? Oh, supported by feel good fundamentals. Then why is it? It's a part of the equation, all right? So feel good fundamentals, this is just doing the shit that can make your brain and body just feel good. Whether that be through breath work, cold showers, which spikes up your dopamine in a great way, listening to good music, maybe affirmations, practicing gratitude, getting some sunlight, healthy sleep schedules, exercise and movement, just all the things that we know is good for you that can kind of make you feel better. And when you're in a better mood, you tend to have more positive thinking and you just feel better and you're in a better headspace because of it. So kind of all those things make up the category of contentment. The next category we'll go into is, I think, connection. And this is the one about people, relationships, with yourself and with others. So let's go into this connection. Oh, yeah. I haven't looked at this ahead of time. Okay, yeah. So here's kind of the order here. We go into others. This is, dealing with other people, relationships with others, being compassionate, being understanding, trying not to be as judgmental, being a good listener, how to deal with toxic people. Anything to deal with other human beings is others. And kind of cultivating the relationships with others. The next is connection with self, relationship with self. And I have this second because I think it's easier first to kind of build up an understanding or training of dealing with others and being compassionate towards others than it is yourself. This is probably the most complicated, difficult relationship that we have. and being able to show compassion, love, understanding, patience, self-respect, building self-esteem, confidence, all these kinds of things towards yourself. And it's tough. It's a tough thing to do. We are often much harder on ourselves than anyone else. And so, yeah, it's something to work on. And here's some other things. We don't need to worry about that right now. Disidentified self, that is a more complex thing we'll come back to. Connection with humanity. Humanity, this is kind of just zooming out and kind of going back to the others. This is more of just, I don't know. This is something that I like to look into, but basically kind of looking about where we have gone as a species. Like, that sounds, how's that helpful? But like understanding the way that we are today is because of certain things that happened in the past. Like we are at that dopamine circuits that we have and the wanting and how, the media takes advantage of that circuitry. Well, that's because of our biological drives and instincts and how we have evolved. And so kind of understanding how your brain works and seeing our kind of whole human history or our whole story kind of helps explain why we are the way that we are. Yeah, so it's like you get more understanding for people when you see the kind of bigger picture. And this is also dealing with just history, learning about where things have gone in whatever part of the world and time, and it explains where we are today and like the different cultures and how different people think, that kind of thing. This is definitely the most abstract part, the greater whole. This is going over kind of just our connection to everything, how we fit in to nature and how we are a part of nature, how our earth is a part of the universe, the cosmos, the stars, and how we kind of relate into the bigger picture, because we often think that like we have our own little lives, and even with people, we're just our people and we're, world is crazy. But if we step back, we're on a pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam, going and our little star is orbiting around a black hole. Like that's a bigger picture. So we're taking a step back and looking at the whole thing, and I think that can get us a better appreciation for where we are. I have to stop the video because I have my meeting. I will resume this here in a bit. All right, and just like that, we are back. So this is connection to the greater part of the how we fit in to kind of the universe and just a grander scope. We often just so focused on our little part, and it's almost like instead of being the ant in the ant colony, taking a step back and seeing the whole thing from a different perspective. And I think that can be helpful at times, and also just feelings of awe of what we are a part of. And then, so then the last part, the disidentified self, and this is almost a bridge into the spirituality aspect. And this is also kind of abstract. We're getting into the less practical things, into more of more advanced topics. And this is the idea, just in a nutshell. We don't have to understand everything. But the idea is that you are not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. You're not the sensations you feel. You're not even your beliefs or the stories that you say about your life. You're not your achievements. You're not the roles you play. You're not your past, and you're not your future. And knowing that, knowing that you are fundamentally none of those objects in consciousness or in the world frees you up, and there's a certain freedom to that. There's a liberation that takes place, and you are not bound to the plights or the things of the physical world. That sounds abstract. I know that sounds a little weird. I'm probably not explaining it very well right now, but the idea is becoming less identified or taking your personality personally, loosening the rigid view of yourself and who you think you are. And the idea is that your identity is more rooted in the watcher of all the things that you are not. In the same way that you're having thoughts over and over, you are not those thoughts. You are watching them. You are not the stories or the experiences that you've had in the past. You are the experiencer of those experiences. It's kind of hard to understand. We're by no means going to go into a deep dive to make sure that there's full understanding, but that is essentially the idea of relationships. And that last one, the disidentified self, like I said, is the gateway into spirituality. And before we go into the spirituality category, we have two more categories before that, one of which is perception. Perception is the idea that you basically have a window into how you see the world. Everyone has their own unique perception and how they view themselves in the world, and that is based on your programming, based on your beliefs, your inherent personality, your emotional memory, the experiences you've been through, the time in history that you grew up, where you grew up, the friends you had, the parents that you had. All of these things affect who you are today, how you respond to things in this moment, how you think right now, how you feel right now. All of that is your programming, which then inherently affects the way you see the world. So this is kind of learning about that and how that all works. So the first part is knowing the programming, learning about all the different programming that helps us understand what makes us up. Because we kind of just think, I'm just the way I am. This is who I am. And we don't realize that there are many factors that kind of make that up. And we have, honestly, some influence. And we have some ability to a degree to change maybe some of the things that we don't like about ourselves, or to view or change the perception of past events, or change how we view things in the world. And then once you kind of have that fundamental understanding of the wiring and how you're made up, then the idea is to take that and to notice your own patterns, to kind of, once you know what you're looking for, to then look, to then see and try to become more aware of those different patterns, to be aware of like, oh, I do kind of think that way when that happens. Oh, I do get anxious when I have a deadline, and just being more aware of your own habits and patterns. Next is the rewrite the code. This is the idea of creating habits and change based on the previous two. So then once you understand what programming is, and are aware of the different patterns, then you now have the power to then change and rewrite the code. And we learn about habits and patterns, and how growth is done through discomfort, and that's why it's hard to change, and why is it hard to change, and how the body likes to stay at homeostasis, that biology word, and then learning to change over time, and how to do that in a way that doesn't burn you out. And then kind of different, those three categories are more related. The fourth one is broadening the perspective. Understanding that everything we just learned within those three categories, you can learn and kind of understand about other people's. Understanding that other people have different programming entirely. And you can see this through travel, seeing other cultures, through learning, documentaries, through art, through science, through history, widening your perception and kind of opening your mind. And the opposite would be having a closed mind. This is the opening. This is the expanding, being cognitively flexible, as it says, and understanding that things are relative, and we often are just have a small view of our own self-centered programming of the way we view things. We forget that this is just one interpretation of reality rather than how it actually is. So yeah, that's that. Okay. Obviously, this is a lot of shit, but this is fun for me. I enjoy this. I think when I practice and just kind of look at this stuff daily, like I focus on like one category a day. Try to. And over time, you start to absorb it more. In the same way that, like, if you're working at a job, they don't expect you to know everything the first day, first week. It takes time. The more hours, the more reps, the more you do it, the more you absorb. And I call this a practice for that very reason. It's a practice. By no means am I, an expert, or will you ever be an expert. It's and that's a humility to it. I do think that all these things are worth knowing and worth practicing. They all have their place in the world as a person. And we just do our best little by little, and we be compassionate and understanding and accept where we are, Yeah, it was a joke about the skills that we have. Okay, moving right along. Foundations. 2 categories left. We've done 5 so far. Yeah, let's just recap real quick. It's hard to see. We've done mindfulness. We've done hard stuff. We've done contentment. We've done connection. And we've done perception. And now we're on to foundations. This is kind of like the fundamental shit that we all kind of know. This is really the category that most people see in their feeds and on social medias and stuff, but it's important. I mean, it's out there for a reason. The biohacking and all that kind of stuff. So, not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but basically, body maintenance. Your diet, sleep, and exercise. I mean, these are huge. Honestly, this is probably the most important thing out of everything. If you didn't do at least diet and sleep, I mean, you're screwed. I mean, honestly, if you're not eating healthy and you're not sleeping, then we got nothing to work with. So this is kind of like the fundamental baseline for this meat suit that you're currently occupying. And if this is neglected, you're going to have a hard time doing any of it. And so it's important to talk about, and we definitely will. Resource management, energy, time, and money. This is learning how to conserve your energy, how to deal. You have a finite amount, how to better work with it. We have so much shit we have to do in life. How to just kind of channel and use your energy wisely. Time management. That's another big resource we have. The amount of time we have and how to use that wisely. And kind of, there's a thing I like to call project automation at home, where you kind of automate certain tasks that can just be repeated, that you don't have to intervene with. For example, real quick, is something as silly as automatic feeders for our cats. That's one less thing we have to do and frees you up a little bit of time. Automatic Amazon shipments for toiletries and certain things that we don't have to go to the store every time. You know what I mean? Just little things like that to save you and free you up, free you back some time. Money management. I mean, that goes without saying. Learn how to budget, doing those kinds of things. Work. This is productivity, goals. The very hustle culture type stuff, but doing it in a healthy way. How to really focus more on just habits and having clear goals, and more importantly, as the book Atomic Habits would say, working on systems, putting things in place that you don't even have to think about it. You just do it, and over time, the goals are accomplished because you are just focused on the doing and the process rather than necessarily a result that might not 100% be in your control. Regardless, this is about work, focus, organization, having a calendar, just those kinds of things. Yeah, that's about it for that. Yep. And then the last category, the last category is spirituality. All right. Spirituality. So yeah, we'll just go into it. The first kind of part of this is the big questions. Going into the big things of life, like, why is there spirituality at all? Who are you? Why am I here? Is there something more than this? The hunger, this desire or seeking that most humans have in the feeling that the material world in some form of fashion is just not enough. It's not satisfying on some level. And with that, so there's an analogy that I have of the sky and the clouds. So I guess we could say, so with this analogy, this gets us up looking at the clouds in the sky in the first place. This gets us questioning if spirituality and God and all these kinds of things about like the big questions in life and why we're all here, that kind of stuff. If we say that is all the sky and the clouds, the big questions get us looking up from our day-to-day bullshit and look up at the sky and question and be curious about what is up there. In that analogy. And then this is also part of what you saw in the connection, the disidentified ego, or disidentifying from the self. This is part of it. Seeing the clouds for what they are. The clouds being everything in the physical world, and just like clouds, they pass on through and are ultimately not the realest part of you. I was gonna say they're not real. They are. They are real, but very superficially, very temporal for a time. And seeing how all our thoughts and the story of ourselves and what we do and who we think we are, and I do this and this is how I do things, and ultimately, in 200 years' time, no one's gonna remember you. And everything we do in this life, while it may have an impact and impact future generations, if we think that this is all there is, I mean, then that's it. Then we're going to be gone, because just like the clouds, they too fade into something else. They change, they go away. And so that helps us see that beyond that. So it's like if we are not the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, even this life that is temporary, then what are we? And what are we a part of? There's something bigger, and that is the sky behind the clouds. That what makes the things in form possible is the container or the space that allows them to be there. The sky, or the consciousness, presence, awareness, or for what most people call God. Now, I know this is getting abstract, and those that are Christian will be like, well, I don't believe that I'm God. And it's not like you are God in a kingly sense, but more of just being, you are connected to the source of whatever there is. If you are God's creation, you were created out of God and of love, and that's what you then return to. That's kind of the idea. And we're just playing with all these different ideas, and then so then the next aspect is that all of the worldly religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Sufism, all the different ones point to the same universal truth. They all point to the same God, and they just do it in different ways. And people would argue that no, they have different beliefs. They have different things that they believe in, and then they have different gods, and they came in different. Sure, that is true, but it's like, the idea of this, which is called perennial philosophy, is that in the same way you can order different things on the menu at a restaurant, and they all have different flavors, they all have different tastes, textures, colors, smells. All of these have their own different cultures and beliefs. Underneath their very essence is that they all give you nourishment. Nourishment for the soul, nourishment for the mind and body. And so the idea here in the spirituality category that I follow and will continue to teach is that I don't care what religion that you are. They all have their own path to the same mountaintop. And that is evident if you actually study and look at these different religions. You will, and you look at the people that truly follow them. If you look at the people that were like the Michael Jordans, or the people that really devote their lives to whatever religion these are, you will see profound wisdom and profound knowledge from each one and from each person that does it. And so it is of my belief that the sky, the God, the ultimate source, doesn't necessarily care which one you do as long as you connect with it. The last part of spirituality is glimpses of spirit. This is just kind of a fun little section where we just go over and talk about near-death experience, psychedelics, mystical experiences, spiritual experiences, miracles, basically glimpses into super, like, to the beyond, to that source or God. And you hear people that have near-death experience and say how I saw my, dead mom and I was reunited with her, and she said everything's going to be okay, and I was in this feeling of pure love, and I had a choice to come back or to stay. And it's like I wanted to stay because this felt so good. I just felt so connected to everything, but I just felt at the same time it wasn't my time. Like those kinds of stories. And there's hundreds, thousands of them. And it kind of makes you wonder. Like we can tap into spirituality through different practices, but when you're hit hard with you're about to die, and it's like you're forced into these experiences, and it makes you think that, is there really something beyond? So this is almost like the empirical evidence, so to speak, of the spiritual. And that's just something to look at as well. So yes, that is everything. That is all 7 categories. And as I've said, by no means in hell am I expecting you to know, memorize, or understand all these. It's a life's work. It is truly a life's work, but I think it's a meaningful work. Yeah, and it's something that I enjoy looking at, something I enjoy learning about. I think they all have their place. They all can help us in our lives in different ways. With mindfulness, learning about our attention, learning that our attention is always somewhere, and learning to be more skillful about where we place our attention, saving us some stress and anxiety. And then, of course, hard stuff, going into stress and anxiety and suffering, learning how to deal with that a little bit better, and then maybe even building some toughness or resilience to that suffering. Contentment, being more okay with what is happening, being grateful and appreciative of what we do have, not letting our minds constantly drag us in to remind us of things that we don't have, to make for a more joyous experience. Connection, that feeling of love and belonging to others, and to be more kind to others and less judgmental to them and ourselves, cultivate a better relationship with ourselves. Perception, understanding that we have the ability to change our perception, and using all these other categories to help mold our minds and to change our reality into the way that we want. And understanding that other people are going to have their own views and not be as affected or as ignorant or naive to the fact that they have their own programming and kind of reality. Foundations: sleep, exercise, money, diet, energy, time, all those good things that we all hear about, but they are important. More of the worldly stuff, and then spiritual, to go beyond all of this and to connect to something much deeper than the physical world has to offer. And yeah, being connected to it. So I don't know. I feel like these are pretty good. It's funny because, okay, first of all, like I said, everything in all these categories is learned. I didn't come up with shit. That said, I am kind of, on a human level, a personal level, I am kind of proud of these categories. I think each one is eminently practical and has their own way to benefit you in life. I really do. And I got away from that. For whatever reason, the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to really just do spiritual. Like, I've been really trying to just focus on this sense of I am. And won't go down a rabbit hole, but basically a lot of the spiritual practices are like saying, just connect to the ground of being and to just be. And it's good. It's a great practice. By no means am I saying that you shouldn't look into that or do it, because it's amazing. It's just, for me, for this person, I find better results and just better overall life satisfaction by doing more by varying things up. Variety is the spice of life. Working on different things for a more holistic helping of this person. And so I recently have switched to this podcast format. And so I've away from YouTube videos. I'm going off track here. But my point is that I think I'm just becoming more in tune and trusting of myself and doing what I think is right and what's right for me. Everyone's going to have their own approach. I'm not saying this is the right approach. This is just mine. This is not even mine. This is just what works for this particular person that you're looking at. And I'm going to own it. Like with the YouTube, I'm getting off track. With the YouTube, I try to do whiteboard videos and to try to fit into a box and to make thumbnails and to make shorts and to have search engine optimized and try to do all this like extra YouTube stuff. And that's just not me. It was exhausting. I didn't like the experience of it. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do what I want to really do. I was so focused on getting views and to try to be accepted into a circle of things that I weren't for me, that didn't align with my authentic self. And so that's what I'm doing here. And I tried to fit into another box of like, let me just do the spiritual stuff of the certain thing that other people teach, and let me just see if that works. And I'm again steering away from what I like to do. And so my point is I'm trying to be more authentic and to just follow what feels right for this person. Yeah, I've said that a good bit now. But I guess just repeating it solidifies it in my own mind, and I'm working on this or thinking it through in real time. And that's the other difference is I'm not while I am maybe teaching some things, I'm also processing all this stuff and learning myself right now as I'm saying it. Like, I don't know what I'm going to say. And that's how I got into doing YouTube videos and these kinds of things in the first place, is because all of this was to help me feel better and to grow as a human being. And I think that if I just continue to focus on that aspect and focus on just becoming better as a human being, thinking out loud, and just sharing these ideas and what I'm going through, that will naturally create a ripple effect for others to learn from. Not as a teacher-student, but as a student-to-student kind of thing. Yeah. Just trying to figure out my own way. As we all are. But yeah, I think that's enough talking for now. I think the other episode was like 30 minutes and this is 25, so we're at damn near an hour. So yeah. What else is there to say? But it is fun to have a different category to work on. And they do bleed over into life. Like if you work on hard stuff and you're like trying to be more resilient, to be tough, and to know that you can kind of weather the storm more than you think you're capable of. And then on Wednesday, you're practicing gratitude. Or not, Wednesday's when I typically do contentment, but like you're working on contentment, trying to be emphasize positivity or being grateful. And then something shitty happens. Not only are you going to be practicing your gratitude, but then you also tap into like, I got this. And so you're building the skills. You're building the skills for life. I don't know, man. This makes sense to me. And that's what I got to do, is just follow things. And that's what we all have to do, is just follow your heart. Seriously, just follow your own path and trust in it. All right, it's about that time. Thank you.